Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our FS1 webinar. I'm Miss Megan. I am the head of FS1 here, and I'm joined by some lovely members of the FS1 team. Today, we're going to be talking to you about how we support the communication and language development of your FS1 children and how you can support the communication and language development of your children at home as well. Thank you, Romley. So today we are going to be looking at the following. We're going to give you a brief description of the Early Years Foundation Stage Framework. This is the curriculum that we follow here in FS. We're also going to have a closer look into the importance of communication and language skills and how young children develop them. Then we will be talking about how to support your child with their communication and language development. Thank you, Romley. So I'm going to pass you on to Miss Elizabeth, and she's going to take you through the EYFS curriculum.
Good morning, everyone. So in school, we use the EYFS to teach the children. There are 7 areas in the EYFS curriculum: communication and language, physical development, personal, social and emotional development. And then we have our specific areas: maths, literacy, understanding the world, and expressive arts and design. The primary areas are fundamental and they support the development in all the areas of the EYFS. That's why they're so important and we focus on them first. So with communication and language, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Thank you, Romley. Communication and language is a prime area of learning based on the central importance of these skills for all learning and development. In the EYFS, communication and language development considers these 3 aspects: listening and attention, understanding and speaking. As children develop their speaking and listening skills, they're building the foundations for literacy and learning. And it's so important that they have these skills so they can express themselves and make friends. Thank you, Romley. So communication and language contains 3 strands: the listening and attention. These skills support language learning and they encourage and include the ability to discriminate sounds and maintain and monitor attention in a shared context. So that's when the children are listening attentively in a range of situations. They listen to stories, they anticipate key events and respond to what they hear with relevant comments. They're understanding when young children gradually develop the ability to understand words and context, beginning with single words and building on this with phrases, and so much more with complex sentences. So this is following instructions, involving several ideas or actions and answering those how and why questions. And then we have speaking, which is so important in FS. This allows the children to express their feelings, needs and wants through their thoughts and ideas, and the ability to talk about what has happened and to be creative and imaginative. So now I'm going to pass you on to Miss Yushra, who is going to be talking about what we do in school.
Good morning, everybody. So now we move on to supporting young children's communication and language development. We'll be looking at 2 ways of supporting this development, and the first one is conversation. Young children need lots of opportunities to have conversations with you and to hear you modeling language and introducing new words. They learn language better when they're engaged with things that fascinate, challenge, and excite them. They need to hear and say new words often to strengthen the connections in their brains and to keep building their vocabulary. So, for example, we introduced Harry the Hardworking Hedgehog to the children. We then used these new words, hardworking or working hard, in their learning experiences, such as when they're writing, helping their friends or problem solving, not giving up, challenging themselves, and being resilient. They begin to hear these words daily and they start to build on and strengthen the connection to what that word means and it's associated with. And this exposure helps develop their vocabulary. Thank you, Romley. The second way is through meaningful interactions and experiences. Now, it's important to remember that this goes hand in hand with conversation. Children learn through their senses and through doing. It's important to provide opportunities for children to enjoy and engage on this hands-on learning experiences. In class, we then break these down and link in key vocabulary. It's important to revisit these learning experiences and to follow up with questions and opportunities to discuss them further. So blended learning has been really beneficial to showing parents and other grown-ups who are helping them how significant these meaningful interactions and experiences are with the activities we do and through their learning environment at home and at school. Through our topic of can you make a rainbow, the children explored color, number, they observed changes, and each experience and interaction was purposeful. We then had the follow-up calls to make it meaningful through asking why and how questions and can you show me? All these experiences link to enhance their holistic development as they continue to build and make connections through the week and through the whole year. Thank you, Romney. Now let's look at English as an additional language. We value the importance of children speaking their mother tongue at home and with their families. We encourage families to provide opportunities to speak in English alongside their first language and not instead of. So this means we'd like the children to still hear their home language from one parent along with English. So for example, it could be that mommy speaks English and daddy will speak the home language, or daddy will speak English and mommy will speak the home language. Throughout the learning day, the children are exposed to an enriched English language environment in which we find they pick up quickly. So the children are immersed in learning English at school, and they are so smart and learn these new words quickly. Our learning questions explore a variety of keywords and are linked to hands-on experiences so that the children can understand and use the language in a variety of ways. This links with them joining dots and making connections in their brains. So for example, we use the word observe in their science experiments, and like in our topic of can you make a rainbow, they had to observe the changes in the Skittle experiment. And then we'll ask them, can you observe what you see outside, so that they learn these new words. I'm now going to pass you on to Miss Megan, who will continue.
Thank you, Miss Yusra. Thank you, Romley. So now we're going to talk about what you can do for your child and how you can help support them with their communication and language at home. So the first point says that you can show them pictures of them. Now this could be pictures of them at school, or this could be pictures of times that you've had with your child, with your family. Maybe you went somewhere special. And by showing them these pictures and asking them things like, what were you doing here? Or where were we? Where did we go? Can you remember this special time? Then your child has something to talk about. They have a point of reference that they can describe about, they can explain, and they can remember that time that they've had, and they can talk about it fluently. Whereas if you just ask them separately, do you remember the time we went to the zoo? Or what did you do at school today? Your child is less likely to be able to talk a lot about what happened, because it's really hard for young children to remember. If you show them a picture, then they can remember, and then they can tell you what happened. The next point says to play with your child and have fun. Although this might sound really obvious, it's really important that you play with your child at home and you're silly with them. You can make up stories, you can make up games, you can be imaginative, you can narrate how you do things. All of these things, as long as you're talking and describing what's happening, then your child is picking up on all of this language and they're making sense of the language. And then they're more likely to use it when they're playing at home and in school as well. So if your child has a kitchen set, or if your child has a playhouse, if you can get in the kitchen with your child, or if you can get in the playhouse with your child and you can be silly with them, and you can be the mum and they can be the child, or they can be the mum and you can be the child, this will really help them to practice using lots of different language in lots of different situations. And when they come to school, they can use all that language that they've heard from you when they're in the role play area in their class. Also, when you're cooking or when you're doing something, if you narrate how you're doing it, so first I'm cracking the eggs, next I'm whisking it round, your child is watching you do these things and they're picking up and absorbing all this language, and then they're making sense of it, and then again they're likely to use it in their own situations. Story time is so important. We can't stress this enough. Story time is so important for communication and language development. Maybe you have lots of books at home and you can share these books with your child, or maybe you don't have many books, and that's fine. You could just make up a story. I find that in my class, when I make up a story using puppets or any resources that I have in the class, the children clap afterwards because they just love it. They think it's amazing. It's like a play for them. So if you don't have any books, or you've read all your books at home, or you can't get to a library, don't worry, you can just make up a story, and your child will enjoy it just as much. Speaking and listening games, these are really important games, and this is something we do every single day in class. So we always ask the children, what can you hear? What can you see? Where is this? Where is that? And we show them pictures, or we go on a walk around the class, a walk around the school, or a walk outside, and we listen to what we can hear and we look to see what we can see. And through these experiences, the children are able to talk about what they can hear and what they can see, because they're experiencing it for themselves firsthand. So if you do go on a walk, or if you do show your child a picture, you can ask them questions like, what can you see here? Or where is the dog in this picture? Things like that are really important to check your child's understanding. And then lastly, it says that you can model and extend vocabulary. So in every situation, you can always extend your child's learning by adding more vocab into the sentence that they're speaking. So for example, if your child says hungry, then it's really important you model them saying, I feel hungry, mum, or I feel hungry, dad. Can I have some food, please? And you need to expect that of them. So they need to then try and say that back to you. So if your child doesn't have a lot of English language, that's fine. If they know a word like hungry, just make sure you're having those high expectations of them, because that's what we do in class. And if a child does say something like hungry, we'd say, oh, can you tell me that you're feeling hungry? And can you tell me what you would like to eat? And then we can make it together. So those high expectations are really important, and they will help your child to use longer sentences when they're communicating. Thank you, Romley. So here we've got some examples of things we do in class and how you can do these things at home. So like I was saying before, we use pictures as a basis for conversation. So the first thing we do at the start of the year is we ask you to send in pictures of your family. And the reason why we do this is because we put them up in the class, and we find that children automatically from their very first day have something that they can talk about to their friends and to their teachers. So here I've put pictures of all of my children's families in the role play area. And as you can see from this picture, 2 children are already, this was in the first week of school, they're already pointing to their pictures and they're already talking to each other about who's in their family. And this type of conversation probably wouldn't have happened so easily and so fluently if those pictures were not up in the role play area. So you can do things like that at home by showing them pictures of their school day. So we obviously use Seesaw, and your class teacher is posting pictures all the time. And even if you show them a picture of something that happened in school that day, and even if your child's not in the picture, they'll still be able to explain what happened or point to their friends and tell you who their friends are. And all of these things are really important. Thank you, Romley. So also, when the children are in the class, we try and ask them open-ended questions as much as possible. So instead of saying, "Oh, I like your train," we would say, "Oh, wow, what are you making here?" Or "What are you doing here? Can you tell me about what you've made? Can you tell me about how you've made this?" And these open-ended questions allow the child to give more detailed responses and explain their thinking and their understanding. And you can do this at home as well, when they're building, when they're making something. Instead of just saying, "Oh, well done, that's really nice," you can ask them about it, and you can say, "What have you made? How did you make it?" And also, if we post a picture of your child making something like this onto Seesaw, you can say, "Wow, what were you doing here?" or "What were you making here?" And that will help them to recap their experiences and to then talk about it and describe what they did. Thank you, Romley. So I'm going to pass you on to Miss Elaine now, who's going to take you through some more examples.
Hi everyone, there's a few more examples here about how we are extending communication and language in our classroom. So we like to provide resources for our children to retell stories that they have already learned. We also model how to make up stories, so these can be silly stories and imaginative ones. The more stories that children listen to, the more language that they have to use in their storytelling and to allow them to create their own imaginative stories. In this picture here, you can see that there are some resources to be able to retell the story of Humpty Dumpty. By asking the children what happened next, it allows them to extend their vocabulary when storytelling. They can say what happens next, or they can think of something else that they would like to add to the story, and they will be able to create this story themselves. Thank you, Romley. Stories and books are so important for the development of communication and language skills. In school, we ask our children to tell us familiar stories they have learned. These can be from stories that we learn in school, or maybe some stories that they may have at home. We ask them open-ended questions about the pictures in these storybooks so that they can use their own imagination to tell you what's going on. By asking the question, "What is happening here?" you are allowing the children ownership of what they think might be happening in the story. Just like Miss Megan spoke about open-ended questions, asking questions like "What is happening?" allows them to give any answer that they think is correct, or they might want to give a silly answer because that's how they would like the story to happen. Thanks, Romley. Role play is really important for our development of communication and language skills. You can support by modeling role play and introducing new vocabulary into the play. In our picture here, we can see in Miss Megan's classroom that she has set up a fruit and vegetable shop. Things such as fruit and vegetable shops and supermarkets are really exciting for the children to play in school, as majority of the children will have their own real life experiences of how to manage and how to walk around a shop and supermarket. They might be familiar with some phrases and some conversations that may happen in these situations, and they can bring these familiar words and vocabulary into their play. As adults, to extend our children's language and communication, we can offer them new vocabulary and model how to hold a conversation with each other, so that then the children can use these conversations and phrases and new vocabulary to speak with one another and to play themselves. Kitchens, shops and schools are all fantastic as children have these own first-hand experiences that are already familiar to them. Thanks, Ramley. And that is our webinar for communication and language today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to attend. We hope that from listening to some of the teachers here and seeing what we do in school has given you a better understanding of how to help at home and to also understand how we teach communication and language skills in school. If you have any questions at all, please write them in the chat, or you can always get in touch with your class teacher who will be more than happy to talk you through some more communication and language skills that you can work on at home with your child.
Just have a little look at the chat.
So if you have any questions at all, you can type it into our Q&A chat and we'll be more than happy to answer some questions. Okay, everyone, thank you again for attending our webinar. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask your class teacher, as we are more than happy to help in any way that we can. Thank you very much.